Welcome back to the Comedy Then podcast, your backstage pass to the business of funny. And today we have my good friend, Danny Johnson, a veteran comedian and one of the funniest voices in clean comedy you've probably never heard of. Danny's worked alongside comedy legends like Howie Mandel, Norm Macdonald, and Bob Saget. And he's known for his dry bar comedy special and his brand new Honest Fox comedy special titled Everything Bothers Me. After decades of quietly mastering his craft behind the scenes, Danny is finally having his moment. And it's just proof that when you build your career in comedy the right way, good things come your way. And we're here to talk about it with him. Let's go. You must feel, hopefully, excited. One of the big things we just dropped for you just a couple of weeks ago now, and it's already taken the world by storm. I want to say over 50,000 views on your brand new comedy special on YouTube. And this is significant because, I mean, when we started with you, only had like 400 subscribers, something like that. So this is taken off like super viral. People are loving it. It's getting out there huge. Have you seen the feedback for this thing? I think they're loving it.
Yeah. The funniest thing to me, or the most interesting thing to me thus far, is the day it came out. My son comes out of his room and he goes, "Hey, you already have 200 views." And I think I went to bed. I didn't check it again. And then I woke up the next morning and it was at 7,700. And I remember texting, be like, "Is this a mistake?" Because I had never had, anything like that. And then all of a sudden it's at 10 and 15 and people are sharing it. And I can't even keep up with the comments. And I'm blown away by it.
Well, you're no stranger to views because, I mean, you can look at your dry bar special and that thing has millions. But I think what's so cool about this one is like it's on your channel. It is your name all over it. It's your fans commenting and discovering it and sharing it and new fans growing. It's so fun to watch. Like, I think we were just like really excited, and I anticipate it's going to keep growing and growing. But this is your kind of it's your own. It's not your debut special, but it's kind of like a debut special in the sense that it wasn't kind of for somebody else's program and things. Like Dry Bar. We love Dry Bar, but having your set on there, full half hour. Has there been any negative comments?
Just one, and I was happy to respond to it. Dry Bar, also had a lot of, some negative comments, but I'm not so much focused. The person's helping the algorithm, right? So you can comment.
Hate comments are still comments. Yeah, they help. Every one of them helps, actually.
Yeah, it isn't more pressure though, right? Like you said, putting out your own thing with Honest Fox. So it's not like it's more accountability. It's more pressure. It's like people better watch.
Yeah.
If this thing got 100 views total so far, I'd be, throwing myself in front of a train or something.
Yeah, it's and this is not self-promotional at all on our end. I think we just were legitimately just so freaking excited to get that out there and to see it doing well, to see you doing well, and just knowing, like, from our experience what these things on YouTube can lead to. I think what's super interesting, and we have this discussion a lot, is just the trajectory and the way that the landscape has changed from, like, everybody wanted the Comedy Central special, right, or HBO special or something like that. And then for them to Netflix become the king, and they're still the king in so many ways for specials, right? And people are trying other platforms, but the trend toward people putting out self-producing and putting on YouTube has really taken off the last few years. And so I don't feel like it's a first choice for a lot of people now. Have you seen that?
Yes. Absolutely. And I think the stars aligned, so to speak, when we filmed, right? Because when we know we're filming and it's like, okay, the crowds better be into it, my jokes better be on point. And I think, from the filming, I think we just had so much, just everything aligned, and it came out so great. And I left that weekend after filming with you guys like, wow, we got some really, I rarely say this, we got some really good stuff.
Yeah.
And can, very little editing, just put everything aligned. And I was so happy. I couldn't stop talking about it on the way home. And to see it come to fruition in the quality production that you guys did and put out there, I'm finding people sharing it that typically, not that I'm tracking, but haven't shared my stuff before.
Yeah.
Right. So they come across it. They're like, oh, wow, this is legit. This is, and they're sharing it, and which is really nice to see.
Well, and it's interesting too, because like, we have clients who we work with, and it's unfortunate, but we might go years, or a year or two before we really get a chance to see them live.
Hmm.
I remember the first time I saw Henry Cho live, it was several years after we working with him, and live is just different. And so for me
Yeah.
seeing you live, I remember thinking like I was familiar with your work for the most part and seen stuff, but like it just hit different live, and I saw, and I couldn't tell if that was a special performance or just the energy of being there in the room with you.
Right.
I remember like all of our wives, like when we got back at the end, and they loosely track our work, right? But like we take them out to this comedy festival we shot this thing at, and like I not kidding you, like every one of them, who's your favorite? Danny Johnson, Danny Johnson, Danny Johnson, Danny Johnson. Like everybody freaking loved Danny Johnson. And I think unfortunately for you, there's this thing that happens in comedy where there are so many talented people out there doing comedy who
Yeah.
are legit headliner status talent acts who've been doing it for a long time that just haven't been discovered that way before. So people, I think, perceive somebody they didn't heard before come in there,
Yeah.
do comedy, and they think like, wow, this guy's, maybe got some potential, like this guy's,
Yeah.
like, no, Danny's been like crushing it, well-developed act, well-developed, all the things.
Yeah.
And, you've toured with some incredible names. I want to get into that in a few minutes, but, just haven't had like the opportunity to kind of get in front of the digital audience, or even people who, it's
Right.
just whole new discovery for people. You realize you don't necessarily always discover somebody when they're young, or like new in
Right.
comedy. Sometimes you discover them much later when they're like, which is kind of better. I don't know. Do you think it's better?
Yes.
Like, because you're a polished act now. Now you're getting discovered. You're not getting discovered when you're putting out, just poop jokes.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think I'm as as frustrating and patient as it's patient that I've been, and as frustrating as a comedy career can be sometimes. If things do really take off, I have so much content. It's not like I'm in comedy for 2 years. I have 20 minutes of material, and then I hit big on the internet, and I'm being hired to headline, and then I ruin it because I don't have the content. I have all the content you need. I know Netflix is probably watching this, right? So I have all the content you need.
They're big fans of us.
So
They watch everything we put out there.
Right. I do feel fortunate in that sense. I feel very comfortable, and I think that's why I did feel pressure filming, but I also knew I just have so much planned for the evening, so many backups, which I didn't need. The audiences were great, and I think my sets were polished, but I'm just so well prepared and ready for anything that comes up.
Yeah, and when we kind of, I'll say discovered you. It's one of the things that attracted us so much. I mean, you didn't have much in the way of followers really on social,
Right.
and that's kind of what we came in to help really work on, right?
Yep.
But we get phone calls every week about people who want to work with us, and we're honored for every single player that reaches out, and we want to help everybody, right? Like it's kind of like the hard thing is like there's only so much of me and our team to go around, but we want to help everybody. But there are a lot of people who reach out and we're like, man, you're not quite there yet. Like I know you're excited. I know maybe you're young and pretty agile when it comes to social media and pretty savvy with the world, but you've got 20 minutes of content and 4 jokes. So like, let's pump the brakes on us a little bit. We'll strategize with you. We'll like help you develop that, but let's work on that first. Like, I think there's this social media pressure to just produce content and get on the internet as fast as possible, speed to market, that people are kind of losing the grind and the appreciation for the grind of get good at comedy first, and then we'll market you later. You can't, but I think what knowing your career and your path, like how many years have you been doing comedy now?
I started in '98, and that's when I mean started. I mean like started open mics, and I think, and I was one of those. I wish I wasn't. If I had a time machine, I was one of those people. I'm never going to own a cell phone. The internet. I hate it. It can't be the future. What am I thinking? And I look back at that decision, and hence the struggle with the followers in the beginning, right? It's been steady progress since. But yeah, I wish if I had a time machine, I'd go back and really focus on that trend.
Well, what's crazy about the world back in '98, this wasn't even a consideration, right? But like nowadays, one of the things we hear over and over again from people who are struggling to kind of develop this career trajectory of theirs is that the whole industry has flipped, right? Like it used to be
Yeah.
that you got stage time and then you developed an act and then you kind of get into some, you
Yeah.
get good at it and then you develop marketing. But now like people need, for these clubs, unless you're on open mic night, it's almost hard to even get a slot if you don't have a social media following. So it's this chicken and the egg situation that just kind of sucks a little bit. And I understand it from the business perspective from clubs, but they're giving people chances who don't have an act just because they have social media followers, and denying time to people who are super freaking talented, but they can't move tickets as well. And so they kind of take a back seat to these other acts who have, a million Facebook followers.
Well, what's interesting to me is that we open for them and sometimes give them a hard time following us because we've got a polished act that kills, and then they get up there, him and Han, and sometimes they do well, sometimes they don't, but then afterwards you get interviewed by them about stand-up, and you're like, man, you're making 10 times what I'm making tonight.
Yeah.
And
I've seen that in person firsthand, and I won't name names. But one of the comics who we did a bunch of work with, and he's absolutely brilliant. He's crushing everywhere he goes now. He's can't speak highly enough of him, but he got a job at a comedy club in Dallas opening for kind of a Facebook sensation act. And it was the most awkward moment in a small club I've ever been a part of, where that guy comes in as the feature act, absolutely crushes. Like, people are like not even drunk. They're just still like, but they're falling over on their chairs. And then he walks off stage from his like 10, 12-minute middle set. The main guy hops on, and the energy just felt like a vacuum sucked every molecule of it out of the room. And it was the most awkward thing. And I'm sitting next to him outside, and one guy, I think this guy must have left early because I don't think the show was even over. Some fan left early, and they were there for the guy, right? They weren't there for anybody else. They were there because they seen this guy on Facebook.
Yeah.
And they come up to me and my friend, the comic who featured, and he's like, well, man, you're really funny. That guy is not as good without the Facebook filters. And I remember talking to my comic buddy, and the guy left, and I'm talking to my comic buddy, and he's like, God, if someone said I'm not as good without the Facebook filters, I think I would just quit everything that night, because it was just like that. I could not think of a bigger insult. And it's not necessarily, I don't fault these people who get out there and want to do basically, glorified meet and greets with fans and make some money. Like, you should go do that. And, but it's kind of unfair to them too, to put them out there, because they're going to sell great the first show. They're going to get booked for the second show, but no one's going to come back because they remember what a train wreck the performance was, because the guy just didn't have chops to string together things without editing. Have you seen that play out, like, in person? Have you ever been in a room when that happens?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it play out for a peer of mine, and then for myself, doing it myself. So the next show, I think I almost took a layup. I still did well, but I was like, I need to probably, just for their sake, I know it's their show, it's their fans, and I just kind of did my set and set the table, so to speak. But I mean, it's sort of a catch-22, right? Because, well, not really catch-22. That's a bad phrasing. It's sort of, I just need my notoriety and content to meet at the same time. To you know what I mean? I have, and I continue to create material and jokes and write and perform and whatnot. But if I can get those two things to align, that would be wonderful.
What do you tell the people that, because you've met them, I'm sure, these Facebook people or these TikTok folks? Do they ever ask you for advice of like, hey, how do I get to? Because like most of them I've interacted with there's a few who have no self-awareness, but most of them kind of understand like, hey, I need to develop this act. I'm being put in this position to sell tickets. I filled up a theater, but golly, if I don't have trouble getting past like 15 minutes of content for an hour and a half show. Are they asking you for advice? Because I've seen them; they're pretty open about that. But what kind of advice are you telling them when they talk to you about those issues?
I talk to them about performing for a group that's not their fans.
Okay, that's amazing. Yeah,
to truly find out if what they're saying is funny, right? Because their fans are there to see them, so pretty much they're going to have a decent show all around in general. But if you really want to develop material that is more universal and that you can guarantee whether they're your fans or not, they're going to enjoy it and come back, then try open mic nights or try any kind of event that has comedy, just without people knowing who you are. And sometimes they're open to it, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're too busy being booked at theaters
Yeah.
to to worry about, or
Yeah.
selling out comedy clubs.
They're building a
Uh,
plane and flying at the same time.
yeah, and then the other thing is to whatever's most popular for them on social media. How do you extend that to the stage? So if they're doing a character on social media, but they never do it in their act, I'm like, I think people are waiting for you to whip out the straw hat or whatever it is that you're doing on social media. And I noticed you didn't do that. And they were like, yeah, I really want to separate the two. And I'm like, well, they're here because
Yeah.
you have 5 million followers on social media. And part of that is the characters that you do. You may want to think about bringing that to.
Do you encourage them to kind of try to find a way to bridge that content that they're familiar with online to doing it in a way that also helps them develop the new material? Like, you kind of have to dance with the one who brought you a little bit, but you also want to develop this new material that is designed from the ground up for the stage.
Yeah.
The real life stage, not the Instagram stage. Do you find them trying to encourage them to kind of find ways to bridge those two pieces together? Because that's usually I've seen people are popular online. There is some sort of, I don't want to call it gimmick in a bad way, but like there's some sort of like catch, right? There's some hook that kind of was a social media only hook.
Yeah, and I try to encourage them to do it in a way where it doesn't require audience participation, because I've seen it go wrong the other way. They'll bring whatever character to life on stage and start interacting with the crowd, who can't wait to interact with their huge fans of this person, and then it derails. And they can't handle they're not used to hecklers. They're not used to people participating and impromptu. So encouraging them to bring it to the stage, to involve the audience in a way where it doesn't require them to respond, looping them into maybe behind the scenes of the character that they've fallen in love with on social media.
How do you talk to them about the hecklers? Because that is a thing that they're absolutely not used to. I mean, mean comments are one thing. When you have to interact with that mean comment person in real life, 20 feet away from them, like, how do you coach them how to deal with that new perspective of the live stage?
I think that's too long of a lesson, because it comes with experience for me anyway. I think the only time I've ever witnessed some sort of unruly customer or hecklers is the fans are there to see this person, so the fans have jumped in and cared for it. But I just told them the basics. You could deal with it by just the rule number one: if everyone in the room heard it, you have to address it. Don't address it if 20 people in the front heard it. Because 300 people or 1,000 people did not hear it. So that's rule number one. And then you decide which way you want to go. Do you want to just stand closer to them and talk louder on the stage? Sometimes I'll move. If I have one table that's not paying attention, I'll move closer to them and talk louder. So hopefully they look up and go, oh, there's a live show that I paid for.
Yeah.
And or you can attack them, but you're going to alienate them. So, do it at your own risk. But I think that only comes with experience.
Yeah, and we've all seen people handle it like really well, and some people who handle it just so poorly. I go back to Henry Cho. He's one of the guys I've seen handle hecklers just like instant regret in the face of the heckler, because Henry just handles it so well, and he's one of those acts too that like he's never really the butt of the joke, and so he has this posture of like, I'm just gonna wait for you to shut up, and just like it rules the stage when he does.
That was a good impression of him, by the way.
Is that okay? That's not too bad.
Yeah,
that's my South Korean slash Tennessee accent. I got been working on.
I think it would be. I'm not afraid to make it awkward for everybody to embarrass that person, because I don't curse. I'm clean. I work clean, but I'm not. I'm confident enough in my show where it's going and what we're doing. I'll shut it down. You want to be the focus. Yeah. Here we are. And it just becomes so awkward, that they stop or they leave. It doesn't happen too often. But that's what I like to do, is just make them as uncomfortable as possible.
Yeah. As you're probably uncomfortable, talk about, you being uncomfortable as possible in so many real life situations, but you get on the stage and you can just you can flip the script on them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Clean comedy is obviously like everything that's blowing up right now. I think, growing up, conservative and Christian background, church youth groups, like it was like, there weren't a lot of options when I was growing up. Like there was There was kind of there was Gaffigan, there was Brian Regan, there
Yeah.
was Brad Stein, and especially in church circles. But now there's just so much out there, and it's kind of like a golden age of comedy, but specifically clean comedy.
Yeah.
You started in '98. This was way before clean comedy was really cool. Did you
Right.
start out wanting to be clean? Was that natural to you? Were you
Yeah.
always clean, or talk to me about
That's
that
interesting.
process?
I remember having cursed sometimes on stage in the very, very beginning, and that was probably out of fear of failing,
Yeah,
and not being able to embrace the silence while you're up there on stage sometimes, and enjoy those pauses in laughter and whatnot. But my idols in comedy were Seinfeld, Klein. I mean, Carlin, yes, too, but I remember listening to the early Cosby albums. At the
hmm
risk of bringing Cosby's name into it,
it
but
comes
they
up
were
every
all,
podcast. It's fine.
but they're all clean. So, and then the more I kind of studied Seinfeld and watched him, and I loved when he talked about the construction of a joke and how, the oh, I just shook my whole desk. The construction of a joke is like a horse race going around the track, and he goes, if you have to curse, you're cutting across the dirt to get to the finish line. You're taking a bit of a shortcut. He's like, there's always, not always, but there's sometimes a good time to curse or well placed word or whatnot. But the idea of taking a shortcut, I didn't like that. So I just started eliminating having to do it. If it's funny without it, then it's a good joke, I think. Um, but don't get me wrong, I've been tested on stage with audiences that are not responding sometimes the way I want, or hecklers where I just want to lose it and use all the words I've never used on stage before.
Yeah,
But
you're in Jacksonville now, which obviously we all know
yeah,
is comedy mecca of the
of
United States.
course.
But did you start in Jacksonville, or where'd you start out at?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So
Where were you getting where was your early stage time?
my first ever time on stage was on Long Island, New York, where I grew up, and I was 18, and I'm a all throughout high school huge fan of Saturday Night Live. My friends and I would talk about SNL skits, and I'm just terrified to public speak. To this day, it's my biggest fear, public speaking. Which is this. So this is a great
Appropriate.
career. Yeah,
Yeah.
great career. And so I finally convinced my buddy to do a comedy duo stand up at this comedy club in Ronkonkoma, Long Island. It was called Konkoma Comedy Club on Portion Road. I remember this. It's no longer in business, but it was an open mic. Me and my buddy created like a 5-10 minute act as stand up duo, and there were 73 people in the crowd. We brought 63 of them, and we did great. We killed it. And then after the show, some of the other comics were like, "Hey, where did you get this idea, this idea, this idea?" Like, "Oh, we saw it on TV." And they're like, "Oh, you can't do that. That's not
Yeah.
yours." I'm like, "Well, we didn't know. We've never done stand up before." So from that point on, 18 years old, and then when I left I did 2 years of college at Farmingdale University, State University of New York at Farmingdale, Long Island. When I transferred to USF in Tampa, I just kept writing, like jokes and premises, ideas, and that the whole Chusky Life thing for my dry bar special was penned in eighth grade. That idea, something that happened between my mother and I when she called me, husky, and I said I'm chubby. So anyway, I finally got the confidence enough when I moved to Jacksonville. I'm 10 miles from the comedy club. It's an A room, the Comedy Zone, and they had like a class. And I was like, well, I can't. This is the universe telling me something. I have 3 notebooks full of ideas. I've always wanted to do stand up. I'm terrified of doing it, and I happen to move 10 miles from an A room that's giving a free class. I'm like, I better do it. So I did, and then I ended up emceeing, being a house MC for a couple of years, and then the feature that headlined other rooms would take me to feature for them, and so on and so forth. And just kept getting bumped up, bumped up, bumped up.
So how'd you work for your way from that to like? I mean, I'm not even familiar with the gap between those days,
Yeah.
Florida, and then dry bar. Like what was that? that sequence of events like? Because obviously that's many years later. You've been
Hmm.
developing your act for quite a while, like over a decade, more than a
Yeah.
decade, at that point. So what was that journey like to be able to get to, developing your first, full hour,
Yeah.
and obviously we'll get to it later too, but people you got into tour with, obviously you don't get just to do that if you've just been doing,
Right.
classes and open mic.
I think the first phase of me being really pushed to write and write and write and write was when I became a house MC at that club. Back then, the comedy clubs, at least the good ones, were Tuesday through Saturday, and you would, have Tuesday show, Wednesday, Thursday, 2 Fridays, sometimes 3 Saturday. And this particular club, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, were radio nights where a radio host would, give out tickets to his or her listeners, and it started to be every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday started to be the same people that would call the station and get free tickets. So if I was a house MC, I may work every other week sometimes, and people started yelling my jokes out. Right, so I'm
Because they'd seen
literally,
you that many times.
yeah, they had seen me 4 or 5 times, and they're like, or that I didn't do a joke. They're like, you didn't do the Star Wars joke or whatever, and I'm like, ugh, or they're finishing my punchline, and I was like, so I really need to cultivate some new material, and that's where the struggles really started. I think I'm unique. A lot of comics say they bombed the first couple of times on stage. I did really well for a while,
Yeah.
probably because of the ideas I had for the 7 years prior. I'm just building on that. But then the new material, you start to struggle a little bit. You get frustrated and you build it. As I did all that house emceeing, it's just relationships with the feature act and the headliner. Like, hey, do you want to write together? Do you want to, back then it was just a phone call. Or while you're in town, do you want to shoot ideas around? There was a workshop. You build up this. I found it most useful. I'm trying to think how to verbalize this. I found it most helpful to me is that once I developed a signature bit and it became my closer, I would do it for a little while and then retire it. And I told myself if I ever had a special, I would close with that. But I wanted to get rid of my best joke as quickly as possible, if that makes sense, to force
Mm.
myself to hopefully write another closer. Usually my opener became my closer because those are the bookends, the two strongest jokes. But having done that over and over, when it came time for me to get a dry bar, which was sort of out of left field, did you know that Karen Mills got me or helped me get the
No, I
dry
don't.
bar?
She helped you
Yeah.
get that connection. That's so
So
cool.
I'd worked with her before, and I ended up filling in opening for her in December at the Comedy Zone in Jacksonville. It was so I just got a call. Someone can't make it. Are you open? I'm open. So well, we're working together, and I think hers came out that day or that week. And I said to her like, how did you get the dry? Like, how'd you get the dry? You got to be careful how you say it. Like, how did you get it? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, I go, what was the process? And she goes, oh, you'd be perfect for it. She goes, I was featuring for her, so she saw a bunch of different sets of mine,
Mm.
and she just texts. She goes, there's a couple different bookers. She goes, I'm gonna reach out to them, and then 2 days later, This is December of 18. A couple days later, I get a call. Hey, you're booked on Dry Bar January the next year, like 9 weeks away.
Wow.
So I had to come up with sort of a good position to be in, I guess, to complain about. I had, over an hour of material at that point, or, probably close to two. What do I put on a special? What do I want to retire or kind of
Yeah.
put out there? And, but I had 9 days to do it. So first I was like, how do I lose 30 pounds in 9 days? Right. And then secondly, what do I want to put out there? So I just started going through my material and kind of broke it up into chunks, of like different, my family, food, relation, and then start working on the next, which is this is the terrifying part of having a second special. It's harder and harder for me at least, you go through periods of creativity. So now I'm like, when I do a show, I'm like, all right, what did they see? Did they see my dry bar or did they see my latest Honest Fox YouTube special, and then do they want to see the same thing, or do they want to
Yeah.
see? I don't have an hour of new stuff just yet. At least that's not
Yep.
polished. So that's another level of stress. I guess I should be thankful for that. But I loved putting down those two specials and then retiring all of that. Not yet, but eventually retiring all of it. It's just really stressful to, especially potential clients of mine that want to hire me. They're like, just write another 30 minutes that's outside
Yeah.
of those two specials. I'm like, I don't, you know, you won't know the difference.
I'll get right on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
have you? It's like with those people that say, "Have you ever thought about doing Jimmy Fallon's show?" I go, "Yeah, every day. I've thought about it.
Yeah.
Like, I can't just call and say I want to be on it." But
Yeah, so you go from there, and when you're preparing this one for the Honest Fox one, you'd already done one with Dry Bar,
right.
And were the things you took from your construction of that one that you were able to build upon for this one? Because they're about the same. Yeah. I think they're about the same length, aren't they? They're both in the 30-minute-ish range. Was there a different approach you took to constructing this one? Because I think you and I even played around with some of the order a little bit of it at one point in early discussions, but what was your process like? Was it refined? And then lastly, what would you do differently after doing this one? Would you maybe go back and think through a different structure for it, or were you pretty happy with it?
Ooh, interesting. I am very happy with it. So this particular special was more personal to me. It was more. I'd like to think that my clean comedy is not. People think clean comedy, they think cheesy, corny. I hope that they can watch this special and see my true angst around my physical health and appearance and my mental health and appearance. There's an underlying anger or frustration with where I'm at in life that I think I think is tangible in the special. So, you start the special about the awkwardness and the massage, and you move on to my and the ancestry bit, and so I wanted to make it more personal about me and kind of the stuff that kind of goes through my mind every single day. It's sort of a comic's insecurity. You're not good enough. You're not good looking enough. You're whatever. It's like I tell people, I had a meeting with the America's Got Talent casting agent last year or the year before, and they were like, "Well, we're just not looking for straight white guys right now." It's like,
yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure it's racist, and my self-esteem needs something more than that. So, but yeah, so I think there's a lot of. I just wrote a bit yesterday, and continued it this morning. Is that the train to Knoxville?
That's the train. We're supposed to do a sponsored live read anytime we hear the train go by our studio. But
this podcast is brought to you by.
Yeah, this podcast is brought to you. Yeah, choo choo. It's brought to you by, and then fill in the blank. But one day we'll be sponsored by Kleenex or something. But today it's just this cold cup of coffee.
Right.
So cheers to you.
I used to do a comedy club here in town that was right near the train station, and the train would go off in the middle of your set, and you would just have to deal with it. The first time I was luckily improv, like, I got to wrap it up. That's the 7:30 to Cleveland or something like that.
Yeah, we actually had so for people who don't know, the studio where we taped the special is right below, or the club is right below the studio, and so we were like, hey, just so everybody knows, like, there's a train, like 10 yards outside the door of the studio, so you may be fine. It may go off. You don't know, but if you have any good train jokes, this is the time to polish them, because you might need to pull one out of your back pocket at any given moment.
Well, we played Little League and soccer when I was a young kid on Long Island. Was right next to a train station, and whenever a train went by, you would just see the kids. You would just see a ball shoot off from the middle of them, because they would all be stopping and looking at the train going by.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of the game. It doesn't matter. There's a bunch of kids following a soccer ball, and then the train comes and they just stop, and you just see the ball continue to go on.
That's the perfect thing you need for a bunch of, like, ADD 4 and 5 year olds. Is just the loudest distraction possible.
Right.
So one of the things that was fascinating to me when you first met you, and you talk about kind of these different experiences you'd had before. I mean, you've worked with so many incredible people in the industry. I know you've worked with Mandel. You've worked with
I got,
Bob Saget.
yeah.
You've worked with Norm Macdonald. You've worked with Mary Ellen Hooper. You've people who are, anybody in comedy knows these names. Most people
Yeah,
who aren't in comedy still know these names. You know, what was that experience like? Was it intimidating the first time you ever worked with like a real headliner? Was
for
that like a
sure.
scary experience? What was that like?
Yeah, I don't know how to act with celebrities. I learned that quickly. I don't know. I think not until I did dates with Howie Mandel this past year did I feel very comfortable, and that's years
Yeah.
of working with celebrities. And it might have been Howie. He's just, I just felt he made me feel comfortable immediately. But meeting a celebrity for the first time, especially when you're not experienced, it's like you don't almost don't realize they're a person. It's just a person that has notoriety.
Yeah.
Working with Saget. By the way, some of the people, and I realized this when I was at a corporate event that they hired me for, and they read my biography, and they read the whole thing, and they were listing off all these celebrities I worked with, and 40% of them were passed away. I was like, geez, I should probably update it. But it's a reminder of a joke I used to do. I was opening for another celebrity, and I joked with the crowd. I was performing in St. Augustine, and I said, "Hey, this is a date coming up with this celebrity." And I said, "I've had the unique opportunity to work with Richard Lewis, Norm Macdonald, Bob Saget, all of whom have passed. So you might want to buy tickets to this one coming up because I don't know what's going to happen to this person."
Yeah. You never want to do a one man show because that could be the end of your own career.
I think, yeah, I I think working with a celebrity is there's two. I love when I make them laugh. I mean, Saget was the very first. I've worked with him many times, but the very first celebrity ever was Saget, and I was an MC, like we talked about. I thought I'd wear a suit. I don't know, it was like Vegas style or whatever. And he was super cool. And when the week was done, he got me spots in Los Angeles. I flew out to LA, and he didn't even have to do that. This is before internet, before anything, no text. It was just phone calls. But I remember wearing a suit with Saget, and I'm driving him around town to different bars and restaurants and stuff in my old Chevy S10. And he's six, whatever,
He's a big guy.
six, and he's kind of in my little Chevy S10 on his flip phone. We go to these different spots. Every spot we went to, people were asking me if they could talk to Bob because I'm in a suit. They thought I was his bodyguard. And I was like, it's $10 to talk to Seth.
Yeah.
It's just give me. So I made a couple bucks. But we go to this one bar area, this club, and they had a VIP area set off for me and Saget and some other radio personalities or whatever. And nobody was coming up to us. Nobody recognized it was Bob Saget because you're in Jacksonville. No one thinks that Saget, the Full House dude's going to show up. So this girl finally recognizes Saget. She asked me if she could speak with him. I said it's $20, and she hands Saget a Sharpie, and she goes, "Can you sign my body?" And he goes, "All right." So she doesn't ask for a top; she asks for a bottom signature, and he does it right there in the club. She just unbuttons her, and he just signs it. And we're leaving the parking lot back to my glorious Chevy S10 pickup. And she chases us down and goes, "Bob, Bob, Bob, it wore off from the dancing, from all the sweating and dancing. Can you sign it again?" So in the parking lot, she again undoes her pant and he signs it again. And I didn't get asked to sign anything. I'm like, can I just get a finger to sign or something? Like, where does the MC sign? But he doesn't.
Yeah, it's there's a difference of body part. There's a hierarchy. I think that's kind of people don't talk about it, but
this was nothing to him, and watching him was a great learning experience. He was poised, pleasant with everyone, over tipped, and then at the end of the week, he's like, "Have you ever been to LA?" I said, "No." He goes, "We're going to get you some spots at the Laugh Factory." And it happened. I was like, this is so bizarre. And then I worked with him years later, just before he passed, just as nice. And he told the story on stage at the Florida Theater about him and I out and about and that autograph while I was on the side stage. And I was like, I was getting goosebumps. And like, this was so many years in between. And he just remembered. And making him laugh was the best. He's in his green room. My green room, as an opener for a celebrity, is the hall closet, right, with the half-drank can of Coke. And his is a big spread. and I go in his green room, dressing room, and there's a shower in there, which I had never seen. And he goes, "Hey, Danny, how are you?" I said, "I'm just going to take a quick shower. I'll be right out." And he just started laughing, and to be able to make him laugh uh, is a joy, right?
I've never met anybody who knew Bob and unfortunately, I hate that I never got to meet him in person, but everybody, he's just one of those beloved comics that like just
Yeah.
people don't have like medium feelings about Bob Saget. They loved Bob Saget, and I think
Yep.
like if you didn't know Bob, again, I'm just speaking third person too because I didn't know him directly, but there was kind of the two personas. Everybody who knew him as the Full House guy, the squeaky clean,
Yeah.
corny dad character, or they knew him as the really dirty comic. Like you can go back and watch, so much of his like stand up
Mm-hmm.
comedy, and it was night and day difference. I think that's what people didn't realize. I certainly didn't as a kid in the '90s realize what made Danny Tanner so freaking funny. Is it was such
Yeah.
a 180 from his on stage persona, and but everybody just seems like he was the most giving, selfless,
Yeah.
like kind-hearted guy you can know in Hollywood, like a real one. When he passed, and I'm losing track of how much time that has been. It's been at least a couple of years
Yeah.
now.
It's been a couple of years at this point.
How did that news hit you, having spent so much time with him on the road and kind of feeling like he contributed toward your career?
Yeah. I didn't. You don't believe those things when you first hear him because it's so. He's not 90 years old. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like George Burns passed or whatever. It was. Uh, and I knew his opener that was with him, and touched base, and it was just. I hate to say it hit close to home, but it kind of hit close to home. We weren't best friends, but he was generous beyond belief and so kind, and we spent a good amount of time together both years ago and recently. Um, it's just a shame because I can name 10 other comics that I'd rather. Well, I shouldn't say be deceased, but something, stub a toe or something. But he was one of the great ones, and what I love to see was just how many people like me have these kind of stories.
Yeah.
They're just coming out of the woodwork, and everyone seems to have a Saget story, and it just goes a testament to how great he was, both in public eye and privately.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think it's inspiring. I remember hearing Kelly talk with different friends of his, everything from John Mayer to just a slew of other comics and actors. His inner circle, and yeah, I just like sometimes these people pass, and like I think a parting gift that they kind of leave you with people who are great like that is like it really does inspire you to be like, oh crap, will anybody care this way when I go? The way they cared when Bob, goes. And yeah, it's inspiring, like to think about like people, especially in a toxic industry like entertainment can be, who just stick out as just like beacons of love and genuine, kindness that really leaves you inspired to consider, how you're living. I think Bob was one of those guys who did that so well.
Yeah, he said. He goes, after he had booked me in Los Angeles, he goes, feel free to use my name as a reference. He goes, name dropping's never something that I'm a big fan of. You know who told me that? Jack Nicholson.
Really?
I don't know. He name dropped, so it just it made me laugh.
Yeah, great guy. Comedy is worse off without him.
Richard Lewis, sure. I loved watching his set, but I never got to meet him. I was instructed I was not allowed to meet his openers. Are not allowed to meet him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was there was a club in Atlanta called the Funny Farm Theater. It was almost like a Dave and Buster's. It was inside like almost a Dave and Buster's like establishment, and Richard's instructions were to have the middle act, me, leave the stage completely, and then they play a Warren Zevon song for 4 minutes, and then he comes out on his own. And watching him was the biggest comedy treat. It was like sitting in the back watching the All-Star game. It was amazing. He still recorded his sets, and he took it back to his hotel room in between shows, listened to it, and had different punchlines for a good number of his jokes the second show. I was like, that's work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was always like, I mean, not always, but for as long as I can think of his entire
Hmm.
career, he was always kind of different kind of stratosphere than anybody else. You know, it's like
Yeah,
kind of that super fame of the '80s, and
brilliant
yeah,
comedian.
just whole different world.
Yeah.
Um, Comedy, I know is can't be the performance life can't be too far off from some of your younger day origins because I know you have some kind of connection to the Barnum Bailey Circus. Is that correct?
Yeah. I wish I had, and I need to get with my family on this because this is my great grandparents on my mother's side ran away from home when they were 13 and joined the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. They were tightrope walkers and elephant trainers. And first of all, how bad do things have to be in your life to run away and join the circus?
Yeah,
You
it's usually that in of
was
itself is usually a punchline.
was that the first pick? Was that the first pick
Yeah,
circus, or was it, you know, Hawaii and then circus? So my grandmother on my mother's side, who just passed at 95, when her house was decorated with clowns and pictures of elephants and old relics from the circus. So when she passed, and they have the memoriam during the service, all these old photos, both digitally and displayed. I got to see some really cool pictures of her when she was 5, touching an elephant's trunk, and then her parents. It was called Ford and Price. They went by their two last names shortened, and they were tightrope walkers and elephant trainers. I was like, so I do have a bit of Carney in me, circus Carney. So maybe and so eventually after the circus, they went on to vaudeville, to the silent
yeah.
shows in New York, and so I guess I do have a bit of show business history to build
Well,
on.
it's a great start to your story because I mean, like Henry Cho talks about this on stage all the time to bring his name up again. But he talks about coming from a family of a very successful Asian immigrant family who the kind of expectation was to be a doctor or something
Right.
like that. So I mean, being steering into comedy can only disappoint your family when that's their standard and
Oh yeah,
their
this
yeah. So I mean, it's going into comedy for you had to feel like quite the accomplishment. I mentioned from your family
this
perspective.
was encouraged. They're like, of
Yeah, it's
course.
just yeah. Danny's gonna really make something of himself. Finally, somebody in our
Yeah, he's
family.
finally getting out of the office and putting on a clown suit.
Yeah, yeah. It's you can only impress from there and only please
Like his
your
great grandfather
ancestors.
before him.
Yeah,
He's
the Johnson name shall finally be great.
I'm afraid of heights, so I'm not doing the tightrope walking, I'll tell you that. But I'll do the clown. I'll take a clown thing.
Yeah, yeah. Not to. I'm just gonna steer right into it. Uh, so many comedians, we talk about this a lot, and I think like comedy becomes sort of a way of a means of therapy for a lot of people because of different things they
Yes.
deal with. We recently talked with AJ Wilkerson about how comedy helped him really overcome a lot of his like autism, ADHD diagnoses, and people use to deal with depression, anxiety, and things of that nature. I know that's part of your story as well.
Hmm.
How is comedy, has it been therapeutic for you to be in that career with those kind of struggles, or
Yeah.
has it been something that is almost like you do it in defiance of the struggle?
No, it's 100% therapeutic for me. Even the writing part of it, because you're getting it out of your head, regardless of if it ever hits the stage or not. You're releasing it from your worried brain that's constantly racing with thoughts of anxiety and depression and
Yeah,
whatnot. And I would say that even if I have a bad set, or a set that I really didn't like, it's not depressing. I did something I loved, and I think I made progress in making that joke better or whatever. Like I did an open mic the other night in front of 12 people, just I wanted to try these new ideas, and how much can I get from 11 people response wise, especially from new material. But I walked away super happy, exhilarated, adrenaline, dopamine, everything. Um, and then, so for any kind of anxiety and depression that I might be dealing with, it's super therapeutic. I can't wait to do it again. I can't wait to write the next joke. I can't wait to try the next joke, to get to the next gig. Um, it's those lulls in between. I'll have people in my life that'll say, "You're a little crabby. When are you due to be on stage anytime soon?"
Oh,
because
really?
I
Yeah.
need to release it. I need to get it out, or I'll start talking too much about stupid stuff that I find funny, and my girlfriend would be like, "You need to take this to the stage." Still,
Yeah. Yeah. There's something interesting about people who have those kind of struggles that
hmm
people, I mean, I've talked to lots of comics, and a lot of them are, even well-known comics that are well documented in their struggles with depression or anxiety. And I
yeah,
think like people often wish that would just be lifted from them. And obviously, from a health perspective,
right,
you do wish they didn't struggle with that. But I think what's so interesting, people don't necessarily think about and understand, is that the same sensitivity that makes them so sensitive to, a person so sensitive to,
yeah,
the weight of the world and the troubles of their life and the things that really, keep them down, is the same exact reflexes and sensitivity that allows them to pick up on the smallest details of life and make comedy out of
yeah,
those scenarios. Like, you can't really have one without another. I think that's people don't realize that makes some comics just so brilliant. I mean, take Robert Williams as an example of somebody who,
hmm
struggled with it to the end. A lot of people didn't even know, but it's like, you almost, it's sad that you almost can't seem to get one without the other.
right.
But have you seen that with people you've worked with, and do you think that there's a way to kind of help carry all that in a healthy way?
Yeah, I think, and I'm sober too. I quit drinking a couple years ago. Never had a problem with drugs or alcohol. Just alcohol became too much of something that I looked forward to, so I just eliminated it. But I think if someone is staying away from drugs and alcohol, it could be very therapeutic. It could be a dangerous spiral the other way around, right? So if
Yeah.
you're incorporating all that into your life and you have all these thoughts that you're not dealing with, then yeah, it could be a problem. But um, especially when I think when other comedians hang out with other good comedians, it's extremely therapeutic and beneficial for their mental health too. Because it's, I mean, even in when I was in Zanies doing the Nashville Comedy Festival with Yakov, opening for him that night, in hanging out in that green room, not knowing anybody that well, right? So
Yeah.
I think it was Andrew Stanley. Nate was in and out, Weber, and then Brian Bates, Yakov, and everyone kind of just bullcrapping ideas and just talking shop was extremely cathartic, therapeutic, and you don't feel like you don't belong. You're Jeff Allen's there, and we're talking about a different joke that didn't work well when we worked together. Um, I just left there. It's like a brotherhood or a camaraderie,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
I think that's what you see comedians probably do so well when they do kind of like have these, Nashville's a big comedy scene now. Yeah,
Right.
obviously New York and LA have always been a big comedy scene. Austin's blown up in the last 10 years as a big comedy scene. You kind of feel like maybe that's one of the ways that makes these cities so great, is not just the creative chops you get to build on, and the stage
hmm
time and the camaraderie from a like a writing and performance perspective, but just like the shared struggle of a lot of people that deal with a lot of the same things,
Right.
that are able to improve and help. Sometimes it goes the other way too. Sometimes they become, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have to look in too many comedy store stories to see that, like, the negative vortex can also take hold and plunge people into
Yeah.
just, horrible despair and crises. But like, the positive potential is also there with that camaraderie. And what have you found yourself then, besides those rooms in Nashville? Like, have you found yourselves in situations where like that was like better than other times, where like you've had those circles of people? Like, how do you develop those friendships with other comics to kind of and get to those levels of friendship and understanding?
Yeah. I'm not good at that. I'm not good at relationships. But I would say, I definitely like to work with the people that are fun to hang out with. Right. I don't just pick. The folks that I used to open for me now, we've become friendly. So when I go, like to the open mic the other night, when I go, there's three of them are there. So
Mhm.
it's like no matter how long I haven't seen them, it just seems like we saw each other yesterday. It's, to me, at least, and I think that's just the sign of a good relationship, probably. Um, but it's not all it's not all running through a rose garden with comics, right? There are some comics that I just don't get along with, or I disagree with. But for the most part, it is a fraternity of sorts. I think you just have to pick who you want to hang out with and work with them, get them work, they get you work. It's sort of, especially in the beginning, you find that a lot. You get that friendship, and they're like, "Oh, I have this room over here. I'm going to recommend you," and "Oh, I'll recommend you for this room here." And then if you want, you can get together and write with them. I have a guy in Tampa that he does the board teachers tour. I don't know if you ever heard that before. And we try to touch base every other Sunday for a couple hours on the phone and just write, catch up on life and write different premises. And it's such a great.
Time for a sponsor live read. Yeah, this episode is brought to you by Zyn. Not really, but it is helpful.
Right.
If you do want to sponsor, you're listening to Zyn.
Right.
Send us an
But
email.
yeah, I think it's who you want to hang out with, and stay away from the poisonous people in the business. And you'll find those pretty quickly. And unfortunately, when you're new to the business, you are more tolerant of that. At this point in my career, if someone's deceitful, dishonest, poisonous, they're out. They're gone from my circle, or I don't deal with them, because I have a little bit more, not pull, but a little bit more options. But somebody that's new tends to be more lenient with those kind of folks. I would totally avoid those people.
That's such great advice. I mean, I appreciate you sharing all this insight, and I think it's just so cool to see your journey and your perspective coming up, polishing your craft, getting really freaking good at it, and now to see the growth that we're seeing now with your special out and some of the other cool things I know we're working on directly with you. I know you have your own things you're working on as well. I hope people will watch your special first and foremost.
Everything bothers me.
Everything bothers you. Everything bothers me also, but that is the name of your special. You can find it on YouTube. And Danny Johnson.
Is call me Denny Jensen?
Denny Jensen. DennyJensen.com. No, isn't it DannyJohnson.com though?
Yeah, I remember that was one of the, as much as I was anti-internet and anti-smartphone, back in the day, I bought DannyJohnson.com. So I've
That's
had
incredible.
Foresight enough to, is that the right word? Foresight enough to buy that domain. And I've had 3 offers to buy it off me. Not enough, but there's like a Danny Johnson guitarist in England. There's a Danny Johnson speaker who's actually a female. And then somebody else, 3 different offers to buy my website. I'm like, I got it first.
Well,
I'm
I think
a .com.
Yeah, but Danny is not necessarily the kind of guy. Danny's don't always have a ton of cash to buy up URLs from other Dannys.
Right.
Daniels sometimes are loaded, but I imagine Daniel Johnson went for just a lot. Life-changing amounts.
That's more official. That's an official name.
That's an official name. Like Danny, you could be competing with a lot of middle school athletes or something like that.
Yeah, Danny Johnson is your unemployed uncle on the couch. Daniel Johnson is an executive at Merrill Lynch.
He's doing great. We're really proud of Daniel. Yeah. We're proud of you too. Go watch the special if you haven't already. It's incredible. We were so honored to be able to partner with you for that. And we can't wait to see what it leads to. And please like and subscribe to Danny Johnson's comedy channel. And
Danny Johnson Comedy, all socials. And thank you guys for the great work that we continue to do together and that you did on the special. Really great.
Hey, we're so honored. We're so honored for you to trust us, and can't wait to see where all this goes. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you can get notified as soon as we drop a new episode. Let us know below. Who do you want to hear from? Who should we interview next? We want to know about that. We can go get them. And we'll see you next time.